Hi everybody, it's Stacy Silva with Salon Today Conversations, and today I'm with Jason Facio from Element Salon, but there are four of them, four locations in Nashville, Tennessee. How are you, Jason?
I'm good. I'm doing well. We just
Good.
opened, so we're nervous, but good. It's going well.
When did you open?
We opened the 26th, so Tuesday.
So how's it been so far?
It's been a lot easier than we thought it would be. I mean, we prepared a lot. We did a lot to prepare. But, you have those jitters and those nerves. The anticipation is probably the worst part. Once you're in there after the first day and, you get everything right, you're good. But that anticipation of before you open is nerve-wracking and anxiety-ridden. But once we opened, it was great because we did our homework. So it was good.
Well, I know that we open or at least my salon opens tomorrow, and I booked an appointment for next week. I felt like I was winning the lottery. I was so excited. So I imagine that part of the great part about being back, guests must be just elated to get back.
They are, and we're doing services differently. We're not doing blowouts. And that I thought that was going to be a huge thing. And that was one of the things that was making me anxious is, we have to communicate to our guests that we're not doing blowouts. And so, but they were super receptive to it and wonderful about it and understanding that it is for health and safety. And so it's been good. It's been good. We've been able to message things well. And I think people are very receptive to it. I think people are just grateful to get their hair done, to be honest.
I wanted to talk to you about pricing, specifically color service pricing. And I know it's been a big question for people throughout this pandemic, like whether they should charge a PPE surcharge or whether they should up their prices to accommodate that. But also the color service is going to be different because these clients have not been in the salon for months. And a lot of them took matters into their own hands.
Exactly.
So I know that you're a Vish user. Mm-hmm. So how is it helping you capture the accurate price for color and that you're making sure your team's following through on that?
Yeah. So let me start from the beginning on my relationship with Vish. So I always look for technology in this industry. I think that the growth in this industry is going to happen in the technology realm, right? So at finding the right technology to run your business and finding all the right technology that helps you control cost and increase profit margin. And the best technology I've found so far is Vish. I think Vish has been smart and easy because there are several of these companies that allow you to do this, which is to basically control waste, right? These are color waste control softwares. What Vish does is it has allowed us to measure the waste in a way that impacts the stylist's behavior very little. So the only different thing that the stylist has to do is at the end of the service, they have to reweigh what's left in the bowl. And that's it. So if they can just remember to reweigh the color bowl at the end of the service, now we know how much we're throwing away. So the first step to this is just measuring, because we all know that we're wasting, we just don't know how much we're wasting, right, of color. So if we start with the measuring part, which is what I did back in June, I just told everybody, we're not charging anyone for anything. I just want to know what the waste is. So we started this and everyone changed their behavior and they learned to use the Vish software. So there is an iPad in the color bar and a Bluetooth scale that connects to the iPad, and they do their formulations. The other good thing about it is that this guarantees consistency, because now I have that exact formula in the system under that guest's name. So I know how much I wasted, and then the next time this guest comes in, I have the formula and the amounts, and I know how much I wasted, so I can create the exact formula for exactly what I need and not waste, right? So that's one thing. And the other step, which happened with the pandemic, was, we're coming back to about, 2 or 3 visits worth of hair color we're going to use in one visit. So that means that I have to supply color, 4 times what I usually would to make sure that we have enough supplies. And so that means that upon returning, the guest returning after the pandemic, my profit margin is going to be next to nothing because we have to pay for all this color. So since we had already started with Vish in June, I talked to the owner of Vish and I was like, okay, how can we implement this and make it a win for us, for all of us? And so he said, well, let's just charge per gram. So I used to have a service charge, right? So I charge for every service, haircut, blowout, every single service had a $3 charge that we paid no commission on, and that went straight to pay for supplies. Well, the truth is that covered almost half. Once I started measuring, I realized starting in June, started measuring what we were doing, what we were wasting, or how much we were using rather. And this color fee was not covering it. So I was talking to him and he said, well, if you start charging, but remove the $3 fee, which is what we did, and then start charging by the gram and explain to every guest that comes in, this is completely fair. If you're getting a haircut, your cost went down $3. If you're getting a color and we don't use that much color on you, it's not going to be more than a $3 application. But if we're using a ton of color on you, you're going to pay for a ton of color. And that is a fair thing to do. So whereas before we were averaging out at $3 and charging everybody, whether you're getting color or not, this $3 fee, now we've reduced that and made it a lot more fair, whereby you are paying exactly for what you're using. So it's easy to explain to the guest why we're charging them what they're charging. And if you think about it in terms of other industries, like for example, the mechanic industry, right? They charge you for parts and they charge you for labor. We're doing the exact same thing. We're charging you for parts and we're charging you for labor. And so,
really
and I can show you, and I can show you in the receipt how much you're paying for parts and how much you're paying for labor. And I can show you that for every single visit that you have. So it's fair. It's fair to the guest. It's what we call a triple win, right? It's a win for the salon, it's a win for the stylist, and it's a win for the guest. Because if the guest is paying for what they're using. So that's in a nutshell what Vish has allowed us to do, thereby increase. So now if you can think about every ounce of color or gram of color that you use is attached to $1 revenue. So money is coming in to pay for it. Now supplies are no longer a problem. Color waste is no longer a problem because it's paid. If a stylist wants to use a ton of color on a guest, we don't recommend it, obviously. But the stylist will auto-correct. They will correct how much color they're using. If they're being wasteful, well, now they know it's attached to someone paying for it. So they're going to adjust what they're doing. Whereas before, it was like, well, yes, the team is wasteful, but we don't know which one of us is doing the waste.
Right.
And now it's very centralized. And so you, as a stylist, run your business, behind your chair accordingly. And, you can adjust your behavior. You can adjust how much color you mix. You can mix color twice instead of once. You could, there's all these things that you can do as a stylist to make sure that you are being fair with how much you're using. So that's a little bit of how that has been working out. And it's been great. I mean, the response has been wonderful from our stylist and from our guests. Everyone is completely understanding. And I think especially since this pandemic, and since, like I said, now that we come back, we're coming back to, people that have not been to us, they haven't paid for 2 visits. And now we need to use enough color to cover what 2 visits would have been. So, and we're explaining to them, well, those 2 visits that you didn't do, basically, you are now paying 15% more for this visit, but you saved 200%, because you saved 100%, 100%. So it makes sense.
And that color charge will be different their subsequent visit because it'll be back to normal. Unless they took their matters into their own hands and you're doing color correction over a series of visits.
Yeah.
But if you had, since June, you were measuring on each client, when they come back in now, how is the service provider calculating the formula based on that amount that they used at the last visit isn't applicable for this one.
Right. So you adjust how much you use, and Vish, the technology, will adjust the proportions. So if you want to do more, you just tell them exactly how much more you want, and then it'll adjust the proportions for you, and it'll give you the exact same formula in a bigger
more
amount.
Of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And what are you recommending to the team to increase it by?
To increase what by?
The color.
I don't follow.
Well, okay, so if they came in and they had so many ounces that they needed before,
right,
and it's been 2 months, 2.5 months, how do you calculate how much more you're adding to it? Do they know, or is there a certain number that you use?
Well, no, we don't use a standardized number. Each stylist, so we have a virtual consultation. This is another technology we're using. It's called SnapSnip. It's this company that allows you to do virtual.
I know, Brian. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so I love him. He's wonderful. So we do SnapSnip before you book something. So when we came back, we sent every single guest a SnapSnip, which is a virtual consultation where you take a photo of your front. And so based on that regrowth, the stylist has had time in their house looking at a photo to decide how much they're going to use. So it's completely customized, and they have the time. They're not in the middle of a visit with, 2 people or people around and trying to figure out. They've had time to sit down at home, look at the photos, decide, make a plan, come to work, and, kind of reduce that anxiety. That's, a lot of this is the point of a lot of this technology, is to allow the stylist to let the technology work and just, reduce your anxiety, and it'll all be fine. So that's how we calculate how much more color they need to use, is they look at the regrowth. Every person is different.
Well, I think that's great. And then you're doing it in advance, because I know in the middle of a visit, you're just like, well, I'll just make more because I know I'm going to, but if you've actually got time to think about it and calculate it before they come in, you're making a more educated guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's been working. It's been working wonderfully. Guests are happy, stylists are happy. Even, haircut guests are happy that they came back and their prices are down. So it's, and I would discourage a pandemic fee, to add. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. I don't know how to explain to them that I spent $12,000 in PPE, and how do you do that without sounding, I don't know. I feel like if I can justify with numbers and exactly how much I'm using, what you're going to pay, it just feels more authentic and more real and more fair, to be honest. So
and
that's what I think.
The idea that they're paying for what they're actually using, and that it is the car is a good analogy, because to do it across the board, it's not fair for the person who has just a little regrowth versus the person who's like doing lowlights and highlights and everything else.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the cool thing about Vish is it interfaces with the technology that I use, the software that I use for my front desk. So there's an app in the front desk, and the stylist measures the color in the color bar, and that gets directly fed into the front desk. So the front desk and the stylist never have to talk about how much color they used. It just shows up, and then they know exactly from the scale to the front how much to charge for color per guest. So it's a great communication device, and you stop missing on, for example, a gloss. Do you know how many glosses we have done that the stylist just did it on the chair in the moment, forgot to add it, and all that is just, supplies that went down the drain that was used on someone that were not paid for. And so now every ounce of color that you mix will be paid for. So for the owner who is looking, this is not a huge profit margin industry. So, owners that are breaking their back behind the chair, and, they don't have the time to, follow every single stylist and say, how much are you wasting? We've done so many things throughout the years, like put a jar. I'm sure you've heard this. Put a jar in the back bar and let everybody pour their waste in that jar. And then at the meeting, you show them the jar. You tell them, look how much we're wasting. And then the whole team goes, what? How horrible is that? I can't believe we're doing that. But nobody in particular feels responsible because it's the whole team, right?
Right.
So, so this helps individualize that. And actually, the ones that are like, oh, I can't believe I wasted that much, are the ones that are really good about not wasting.
Right.
You know, that's always the way it is.
And human nature, you understand why it happens, because they also don't want to take that time to go have to remix because they didn't mix enough. So
exactly,
because that cuts into their time, because might make them late for the next appointment. So, and then the other part about capturing the color sales accurately, I mean, and that happens a lot. I mean, clients come in and like, oh, I'd like to have a little, throw in a little highlighter, it doesn't feel shiny enough. Can we do a, they don't even know what they're asking for sometimes, but
right.
It just gets added on to the service, and it doesn't always get translated to the front desk to get charged.
Exactly, and that's how the owner is out. I mean, listen, the highest expense we have is payroll. The second highest expense we have is supplies. So if we want to increase our profit margin, we have to attack one of the two. I'm not going to attack payroll ever. I want payroll to go up, not down. But supplies we can control, and the technology is out there to allow us to control the waste, and people hold themselves responsible for it, because now I'm not telling you how much to mix. Your prices vary based on how much you mix. So you have to become really aware of how much you're mixing. It's a consequence driven behavior, right? So that it's not because someone's telling me, oh, I can't believe you're wasting. And all those conversations about waste are gone, right? All that's gone. And now it's a self-imposed kind of, oh, whoops, I don't want to, overcharge my guest. Nobody wants to do that. So I'm going to be really careful about how much I'm using.
I imagine it also helps the front desk a lot, because, as a client that gets color and it's different every time, my price goes up and down depending on what I decide to do. But sometimes you want to just be explained, why is it higher this time? So the front desk can say, well, you had this time, then you had this and this and this, and it breaks it out by item, and it's not just a random.
Exactly. 100%. It's measurable. It's right there. The numbers are right there in front of you. So it works really well. It makes a ton of sense. The behavior of the stylist and the time that it takes the stylist is not more than they were using before. So they don't get upset about it, because it's not taking, time is money, and it's not intruding in that. And it just makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And for the salon owner, who doesn't have the time to be behind every single stylist telling them, watching the waste, this is the best solution. Listen, we've been trying to solve this problem for 20 years. The color waste problem, at least that's how long I've been in this industry. That's how long I've been trying to solve this problem. And I have done all the things, I've shamed people. I've done everything. And this is the healthiest, most authentic, clear way to do it. It just makes so much sense. And it's also, I think this can turn the industry around. I think this is something that can help a lot of people that have, taken out huge loans to open a business. This will help them increase their profit margin, which is important, because these people have, mortgaged their house so that they can open a business so that other people can be employed. Well, they need to be able to get some profit margin. And this is not a huge profit margin industry. And this technology helps a lot.
So you started using it June 2019. Before the pandemic, what kind of impact were you seeing on your revenue?
So I did not start charging until the pandemic.
Okay.
So I only measured, and my thought was, I know we're wasting, but let's pretend we're not wasting, right? Let's pretend there's no waste, and let's just measure and start at zero. I'm not going to point fingers. And the only thing that the only metric that I held my stylist accountable for was what we called reweigh percentage. So every month, I sit with every single one of our 60 employees one-on-one, and we talk about, you know, their goals, and we have certain metrics. I added one metric called reweigh. So that means that after you've applied your color, you reweighed your bowl, right? So I wanted to get to 90% reweigh, because there's a possibility you do your color and you throw away the bowl, you know, throw away the thing and you don't reweigh, which is a problem, because that's the behavior that we need to do. So from then till now, I just measured. And that's when I started seeing, and again, I didn't shame anyone. I never told any stylist how much they were wasting. The only thing that I ever measured was their behavior. Are you reweighing? Not the waste part. And, you know, even if they were wasting a ton of money and they were at 90% reweigh, I was still happy, because they were doing the behavior that we need to do in order to measure how much waste we have. So once I had the information of how much we were wasting, I realized, okay, we need to find a solution. Either increase the $3 thing or start charging per gram. And I was really between those two. I had not decided exactly what to do. I knew something had to change. And then when the pandemic happened and we realized that upon return, I'm going to have, you know, 4 times the cost in supplies, that's when I realized adjusting the $3 fee was not going to fix it. I had to charge per gram. And so that's how we came to this. This was a natural evolution into doing what we're doing now. It wasn't a purposeful goal. It was, we started with, okay, let's see what's happening. And then if there is a ton of waste, let's see how we can fix it. And we got to where we are now. And then the pandemic happened and we're like, we have to charge per gram. And we started doing that Monday. Today's Thursday. So, and it's been going really, really well. I mean, everyone has been super happy. And, you know, our guests they understand, you know, they've been gone for, you know,
Right.
skip 2 visits, and now they're paying a little more because they're paying per gram. And now they understand that now we charge per gram.
Now, did you do something to communicate to that to them beforehand?
No, we communicate that at the chair. And then, yeah, and it seems, and it's completely fair and understandable. But I mean, if there is a guest that is upset about it, or that, you know, which has not happened, if it were to happen, I have empowered all of my employees to say, you know what, today we'll charge the exact same amount we charged last time, just so you know next time it's going to be like this.
Okay.
And that way they're prepared for next time. I don't want to preempt this, you know, an attitude of, oh, you know, my prices are going to go up. For some people, the prices are going to go down. So I want to make sure, you know, to not set the stage for frustration. So it's been working well. This communication technique has been working well. So, yeah.
Now, before the pandemic, were you seeing a cost savings because your stylists were wasting less?
Yes. Yes. So that was the other thought was, okay, if they know that they're being measured, will their behavior change just by the sheer fact that they know that they're being measured? And yes, the answer is yes. I mean, that's a reality, right? Anyone who knows they're being measured in anything, their behavior changes. So yes, there was a reduction, not enough. Can you imagine what it was before they started measuring them? You know, because
Yeah.
if they reduced their behavior when we started measuring them, I don't know what it was before. I mean, I know it was expensive, but I don't know exactly how much it was. So yes, there was a reduction in a 3-month period. It started to trend down, but not as much as I'm suspecting it's going to, based on what's just started on Monday when we started charging people and they started feeling responsible for, you know, charging people and making sure that it's that they're using what they need to use and not anything more.
Well, and then because it gives you the data on each of your service providers, you can also tell which ones were the ones that were habitually not reweighing, or the ones that are wasting the most. So if you wanted to have a conversation, instead of nagging the whole team, you could have a one-on-one with someone and say, let's look at your data and what is it telling us?
You could also celebrate the ones who are doing really well in big meetings. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's usually the tact I go for is, because I think that it's more productive to celebrate someone who is making the effort, to do this rather than, point fingers. And I think people strive, depending on the culture, and people strive for goodness, people strive to succeed and to hit goals. And once we start celebrating the ones who are really doing the work, then the rest of them usually follow. Yeah. I mean, and yes, if there is one who's like ridiculously mixing a ton of color, then I'll have a conversation with them one-on-one. Yeah. And the software allows us to identify that.
I do think you're right, though. I think now that they are connecting that with that is going to get charged to the client, they're going to be more cognizant of, let's look at what we used last time and let's calculate it as close to accurate as I can. So
yeah, there were no consequences in this industry for overmixing, wasting. There were no consequences at all. The owner just had to eat it. That's just what we do. I mean, we could start. There was some people do a 10% color charge to the stylist. This seems more fair, and yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And we're passing on the cost to the final consumer. It makes sense.
Now, was it pretty easy to adapt your software and when you're checking out to calculate that charge in?
Yeah, so Vish has an app on your front desk, a little application that pops up, and anything that comes on the scale appears in the front desk, and then it shows what the color usage is, and you just add that into the software as a retail product, because now you have to pay taxes on it, right? Because the final consumer is now the consumer. So you add it as a retail item, and for however much it was that visit, and then you charge based on that. Yeah. Great. So the integration has been great. It's been really easy in that it is a different software, but it's right there. What I'm excited about is that Josh, the owner of Vish, is now talking to my software company, not my software company, the company that I use, to completely integrate them. So
it'll be seamless.
Yes, it'll be completely seamless. Yeah, it'll pop up in the register with the charge on it. So I was very excited about this technology when it started, because I have looked at many other companies that do this, and I don't think any of them are as little invasive. They're not as the others are a lot more invasive in terms of the behavior that you have to change, and this one is not, and it just makes a lot of sense. It just makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Now, seeing that you have 4 locations, when you rolled it out last June, did you do one location first as kind of a trial, or did you roll it out across the board? And how long did that training time take?
So
I'm a bit of a masochist.
Yes, I'm a bit of a masochist. I not only started Vish in June, I also changed out the software that I use.
Oh, so yeah, that's a big, you blew it all up.
On all 4 locations at once. So yes, it was a lot. But I thought that it made sense, if we're going to incorporate a change, to tie the change, because I needed to change softwares. And then I wanted to add this technology to it. So I thought, you know what, if I change this software and then I add the technology 3 months later, it's going to be exhausting. There's going to be, I think my team will be tired of all this changes. So if I just tie the 2 together and, okay, so the new software and Vish go hand in hand. And so you're going to use them together, which is exactly how I bought them, right? So that they could work together. It made sense. But, yeah, implementing 4 new salons, new software, and new behavior was a bit of a challenge, especially for our team that had to come to work and try something different. But we have a great culture, we have great attitudes, and people were just trying to help, and it worked out really, really well. And to be honest, the change in behavior is not that difficult. It's not that much. So it was pretty easy. I think the biggest thing was going paperless, to be honest. That was the biggest thing of, so now with this new software, we went completely paperless before we had tickets. And now we're just going from their phone to the front, so they can change their ticket on their phone and it goes to the front. So that was part of it, which everyone was super excited about. And then also that allows them to see their book at home from their phone. So that's something that we didn't have before that they were excited about. So a lot of good things for the stylists happened during this change. And so they were willing to, do the things that they had to do and then also receive the positive things. So it's not all, more work change. It's, you also get the benefit of seeing your book at home. So it was all, it worked out well. It was kind of a synergy between these two software companies that we're using, which is Forest and Vish. And it worked out great. Yeah.
Well, and I think, the change would have to be biggest on your front desk people who are learning new scheduling software, but they're also getting the benefit of not getting all the calls like, when's my first client? And, I need to change this, whatever. And
100%. Yes, everybody. And the good thing about Vish is he actually Josh sent a trainer because he knew that I had 4 locations. And so in 1 week, the trainer visited all 4 locations and stayed at each one for a full day. And, he was wonderful and answered all the questions. And then, they are on the phone. Anytime we have any issues, they answer immediately. I can text them, I call them. So if there's any like technology issues or interface issues or, the scale, maybe there's the scale goes offline or something like that, those things are going to happen and those are going to create frustrations, but it's worth it. It's worth doing it. So, it's worked out. It's worked out well. And it's the positive way outweighs the negative on it. Especially if you have a good culture, if you have a culture of a team that really wants to move forward and wants to grow, they'll embrace it. They'll embrace it because it makes a ton of sense,
Well, and you're investing in them as well. Giving them technology tools to help them do their jobs better is investing in them. So I'm sure they
100%. Yeah. And consistency, right? Consistency. Like I always say, chemistry is not witchcraft. It is science. You don't put a dash of this just because you have to measure it. And so, the magic is in the application. The magic is in the art and the craft. It's not in the mixing. The mixing is science, and that needs to be exact. Sorry. Did I lose you? There you are.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, good.
But it also helps them because it does give an accurate record of the formula. So if you change something and someone comes back and says, oh, last October, I loved what you did. Like, could we recreate that color? You can go back and look and see what you did.
100%.
Because it's all there in the system. So.
Yep. 100%. And if you're on vacation, it's there. And if you're sick, it's there.
So someone else can step in and create the same effect.
Yeah. We had one of our stylists go on maternity leave, and she was out for 2 or 3 months, and we had, it was great. The whole team pulled together and we used the formulas that she had put in there, and it worked out great. We work as a team. So yeah, it was great.
Well, great. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and especially since you opened up this week, and I hope it continues to be a great week and things keep getting better and better.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for talking to me.
Thanks. Bye-bye, Jason.
All right. Bye.